Welcome in! Episode 3, Word of the Weiss, and today's episode is very, very exciting because we do have a guest on, first guest of the podcast. But before we get to that, I do have to acknowledge, first, if you know what I'm talking about, then I do apologize. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say this, then never mind, I'm just kidding. Episode 2 had some sound issues. The mics may or may not have been plugged in. Took me 2 episodes to have sound issues and to mess something up with that. But the over-under was 1.5. So I did hit the over, which is very exciting. Now, with that said, speaking of mics, that was awful. I would like to invite our first guest. University of Florida alum, NFL analyst, jersey connoisseur, unabashed Andor, and The Last Jedi stan. PFF, Pro Football Focus, social media savant. My dear friend, Mike Kennedy. Come on, buddy. You missed the applause. Did play, but we're
appreciate it.
We're all happy to have you. Thanks for coming on.
It's been a long time coming.
It has been a long time coming. This podcast, you are one of 3 people, more than 3, but one of 3 people I really say this would not have happened. Definitely not this soon, if not for you. The last time you were here, as a matter of fact, what did this place look like? It did not look like this.
Do you really want me to tell the audience what it looked like?
Not in detail.
I don't even want to go into detail about how many troubles we had trying to put this technology together.
Just cords and buttons and extensions and things everywhere.
Very embarrassing.
So I do want to say, and I'm not 100% sure about this, which is, now is a great time to ask. I was going to say, Mike and I have known each other since, and we met each other at, and then I realized I have no idea how to finish either of those sentences. This is what I think. Do you know?
I'm that non-important to you that you don't have these special memories?
No. You see, the thing is, it was just such an exciting memory that
you see the way he spins things.
Like, it just blew my mind so much at the time that it
no
just
wonder
hasn't
he's a
carried with
Nick
me.
Wright stan.
So, anyway, tell me if I'm right. Was it producing at ESPN Gainesville, producing a show?
Technically, it was not a show. It was one of the softball games.
But it was producing. Okay. So, I mean, so
what else could it be, honestly?
So, Kennedy, before he graduated, did I make you feel old, by the way, by the UF alum thing? Because that was the goal.
It made me feel celebrated, like I'm better than you.
That's really unfortunate then. Well, Kennedy used to produce at ESPN Gainesville before becoming a professional Pro Football Focus social media savant, as some say, mainly just his Twitter bio. But before, he did used to produce what I do now at ESPN Gainesville, and I think that is where we met. And once I realized that I met somebody who, it's not often you find someone as into both sports and superhero stuff as I am. In fact, I haven't met anybody as into both. Usually people are so into sports but don't give a shit about pop culture stuff. Or
the thing that really connected us, though, was our love for the Boston Celtics.
That was...
We were just kind of, the normal conversation. Oh, the NBA this, yada, 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 you like this job. And then...
It's when you mentioned Guerschon Yabusele for the first time that I was like, oh my god, this kid gets it.
If you know Phil Pressey, you know you're a real one.
So yeah, that's when I knew there was a friendship brewing there. And now...
Close to a year ago.
It was a year ago.
Like last spring.
I'm old. Well, you're old, but I'm getting up there.
Sure, experienced.
Now, so we did... Oh, by the way, did the intro sound familiar at all? Because it may or may not have been pulled straight from your Twitter bio.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I thought you meant the music, but the intro, like, you got to the second line. I was like, oh, I know what this is.
It was very fun. My first time introducing anybody on a podcast.
I will say, He added the savant. I do not have savant in my bio. He went a little
My
extra with that one.
vocabulary is something I pride myself on.
Well, I mean, you're not gonna call yourself a savant.
Yeah, so you need someone to do it for you.
See,
That's what I'm here for. You see,
I
so
respect that.
this is how I'm planning the episode to be. This is what we're going to do. I'm thinking, so I don't know if you know, we did see Ant-Man together on Thursday. Me, Mike, and my cousin, we went and saw it at 3 o'clock. So we're going to review that, talk about it, what we thought, and then make some predictions. Right now it is 7:45 before the All-Star events for the NBA, the dunk contest, three-point contest, skills challenge. So we're going to make some dunk contest and three-point contest predictions after the Ant-Man review, and then come back and see if either of us are as smart as we pretend we are.
We'll probably both be wrong.
I don't know. I've been burning the midnight oil on this. I've been really just researching heavily. And
You've barely watched the NBA all season, and you're gonna nail
Listen,
the All-Star runs.
listen. It's
That's
just
what matters most.
it's not up here. It's in here. It's in here. So it's been 2 days since we saw Ant-Man. You've had 48 hours to sit on it. Now, out of the theater, our original plan was to go see the movie, not talk to each other at all afterwards, drive home in silence, come here, and tell each other our thoughts on it for the first time. And what happened?
Not that. We kind of stood outside the theater for 45 minutes just discussing the movie.
We did. Yeah. In fairness, that was probably an unfair expectation to have, that we were going to be able to just
For
not
any
talk
movie,
about it for
but especially a Marvel movie
the start
taking
of
off
Phase 5. That was just unrealistic. But now you have had 2 days to sit on it. Dude, you know what we should have done? I do have to mention this. We talked about it out of the theater. Imagine, because this is pretty portable. Like, we could have made a makeshift table, some chairs, this stuff, just sat out of the theater and just reacted right away. Because that conversation we had with my cousin, that was a podcast. That would have been great. Because we did have some great reactions.
You live and you learn.
Live and you learn. Maybe in the future. Maybe Guardians. I don't know. It could be cool. But you've had 2 days. Let me know. Nothing too specific, because I have some talking points I want to get into, specific characters and moments and stuff like that. But overall thoughts and impressions, have they changed over the past 2 days? Is it the same?
So I will say there are some things I like more than I did coming out of the theater. I appreciate more. There are some things I thought about and it doesn't work for me. But overall, general thoughts, I feel kind of the same I did, which is I liked the movie, I enjoyed it, I had a good time. But there's just some general plot choices that just don't sit right with me. I think there could have been ways to improve it, to both improve just the story of the individual Ant-Man film and also improve going forward, setting up the rest of Phase 5 and 6.
Yeah, that's kind of how I saw it too, as far as not two different movies, but two different ways to look at it. Like, you can choose to look at it as a small piece of a bigger puzzle, the introduction to what's next, chapter 1, or as its own movie, its own, book, its own project. And I think both are fair ways to look at it, because at the end of the day, it is its own movie. And so its job is to be a good movie in itself, but just as much, if not more, it is to introduce what's next and what's to come. And I thought, as far as being chapter 1 of the multiverse saga, introducing what's to come, I still feel the way I felt after that. It did a great job, and it made me so much more excited for what's to come than I was. But as far as a movie on its own, I've developed a little bit more issues. I know when we got out of the theater, I don't want to say like it as much as, because I did like it, but I definitely don't feel like I loved it as much as you and my cousin did.
Well, I mean, coming out, we did all give our ratings, and you and I were both at like a 7.5.
Yeah, we were pretty
level.
close. So yeah, I feel similar to how I felt. I will say though, something about this movie is people are everywhere on it, because I have a ton of friends that I talk to about it, but the two that I would say I first talked to about it, who are both, Marvel, DC people, watch all the superhero stuff, I talked to them about it. The first one was, I think his exact words were, banger, holy banger. That was great, and his rating was pretty high. The second one, I kid you not, was like, that might be the worst MCU movie I've seen. So people are everywhere on this, and I mean, I get why. I can see both sides of it, but like, I don't know. I'm kind of in the middle on it. I feel like we both are.
And
So
funnily enough, for me, the reactions I've seen from my friends and people online I know, the people who have recently been like Marvel skeptics, like, oh, Marvel's falling off, yada, 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 they seem to really enjoy this movie. Whereas the people who've been keeping up with everything and have been following along every single movie, liking everything, seem to be lower on it. So I don't know if that speaks to where the entire phase is going or what, but it's just an interesting observation I've seen.
yeah, no, I can see why people would think that because with people who have been skeptics, I don't want to say haters, skeptics of Marvel, and I feel like their number one thing is like there is no direction. There's just too much stuff. Who's the big villain? Like, why are all these? How does everything connect? Now we're seeing who the next big bad is, how it's all going to connect. Everything kind of came together in this movie, so I can get why they may like it. But at the same time, the people who have already been enjoying Marvel and the stuff they've been putting out probably had really, really high expectations for this, which I said on episode 2 that I thought this was going to be really great, and I didn't think it was really great. I thought it was good. So I think that might be part of the reason why a lot of people who have been already enjoying the stuff may not be as high on it as people who weren't. So now let's get into specifics, some major plot points of it.
So there's your spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the
Yes.
movie yet, stop this right now and come back after you've seen it. Or if you don't care, just keep listening.
Yes, spoilers will start now. Intro of the movie, it's a voiceover. Pretty classic trope that movies use nowadays. Scott Lang is voicing over, post Endgame what he's been up to. He wrote a book that is available for purchase in real life on Amazon.
Comes out in September.
Not sponsored, should be. But it's him voicing over kind of what he's been doing post Endgame. I'd say, he's been fairly enjoying the celebrity lifestyle. He did, save the universe at the end of the day. But yeah, so your thoughts on the intro voiceover? Did it work for you? Not work for you? Did you not really care? I mean,
The opening intro with the voiceover, it did because this is Scott Lang. The Ant-Man films are comedic in nature. It's in his character, and the fact that he's narrating the book that he wrote just adds to the humor.
it's very
of it.
in character for
Yes.
him.
I'll save it for the end, but the ending voiceover, maybe I had a different opinion on.
So, movie opens and it's Scott voicing over. He's been enjoying his life, and then his daughter, kind of Cassie, she was a major, major character in this movie. A lot of the movie's sort of, messaging behind everything, not subliminal, but pretty obvious in there, was about her and her beliefs. So Scott, at his book reading, gets a call. Cassie is in jail, and he has to go bail her out. And then we are introduced to Cassie, the I don't know, how do you describe her character? I'm trying to think of the word too, as far as like what she was doing when she got arrested.
She's kind of like the epitome of today's Gen Z.
Yeah.
Like, all for freedom and
Yeah,
rights and,
yeah.
these are not negatives, obviously. It's just,
Right. Basically, what she gets arrested for is there was a peaceful protest going on. They don't show it on screen, but they talk about it. There's a peaceful protest going on, and the police, I guess it was tear gas or something along those lines, and she shrunk a cop car using quantum tech, which rose some questions for me because one, did the police not take her quantum tech from her? They were just like, no, you can keep it, but get in the car. We're taking you to.
throw you in the slide.
And but yeah, so she gets arrested for that, and that kind of starts her character arc in the movie. She is very, help the helpless. You have a responsibility to help others than just the ones you know. While Scott, on the other hand, feels like I just saved the universe. I just saved the universe. I just saved the universe. And 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 I just saved the universe there's like, what do I have to do now? I don't have a responsibility to do more than I've done. I can't do more than I've done. And she's sort of like, no, you still are Ant-Man. That's not just over. There's still people out there for you to help. And so that's kind of a relationship in the movie that I thought was a good concept. I thought it was an interesting concept. I just thought maybe some of the ways they went about it wasn't as good as it could have been.
I felt this way coming out of the theater, and I feel more strongly now. They had some good ideas, but they only went to the surface level with it. They could have dived more deeply into it, and there were some parallels with the beginning of the movie, with all this setup you just talked about, and the resolution, the third act, but they didn't really hammer it home, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is Kang's intro, and that is the movie's number one responsibility, number one goal is to introduce Kang. And Cassie's kind of this like side thing, which is an interesting plot point. Cassie and Scott's relationship, her perspective, which I think is fair. Of you still have a job to do. There's still people that can be helped. His perspective of I literally saved the universe. Why should I be expected? Why can't I just enjoy myself for some time and enjoy my family? So I think those are both interesting viewpoints to explore, but like it isn't explored as much as it could and should be because this is Kang's movie. This is the Quantum Realms movie, and they just don't have that much time in the real world. I mean, everything in the real world is shown in the trailer. The first 10 minutes of the movie is everything you get in the real world, pretty much.
I think the film would have been better served to maybe 20, 30 minutes extra because obviously everybody wants to see the Quantum Realm. That's what we're here for, but you need a little bit more setup, in my opinion. They were thrown in literally 5, not even 10 minutes into the movie. So, like, it just kind of ham-fisted the way that they were even put into the Quantum Realm.
That's exactly okay. The inciting incident that the whole movie happened because of was Cassie built a quantum signal device.
By the way, can we mention that the STEM programs in the MCU must be absurd with all these young
in a basement.
teens.
In a basement, as Hank Pym let us know very clearly, she built it in a basement. On her own, she built a device to send a signal to the quantum realm because she was interested in exploring it more, I guess, and Janet just didn't want to talk about it for a reason we don't know, but eventually find out. So Cassie builds this device, and she wants to show it to Scott and Hope, because Scott and Hope don't know about it, but Janet and Hank do. And Janet doesn't either.
No,
Switch them. Okay, so she shows them the device, and this is the same exact thing that happened in No Way Home. That is the sole reason. And before I say this, let me say No Way Home is an all-time movie for me. It is a fantastic movie, but it will never be a top 3 or 5 superhero movie for me because the entire thing couldn't have happened unless something so unrealistic did. And by unrealistic, I mean this is literally Ant-Man Quantumania. So obviously unrealistic stuff is all in the movie.
Unrealistic for the characters.
Unrealistic for the characters, exactly. No Way Home, Doctor Strange would never cast that spell for Peter just because he wanted to get into college.
And even if he would tell him all the ramifications.
It was so out of character for Strange. And it could have just been solved with a simple conversation. Just a 5-minute conversation, and none of the events of that movie would have happened. And so I feel like that's just a lazy way to write it, and just expecting the audience to be like, okay, I guess that's, like, don't be late. Write something that makes sense for that to happen. And in this movie, Janet, rather than saying, no, guys, don't send a signal down to the quantum realm. I have this coming with this guy, Kang, and he wants to take over the multiverse, and he's super evil. Don't send the signal down. You might contact him.
And that's it. That's all she has to say. She doesn't have to go into all this detail about how she was embarrassed, about how she got betrayed and whatnot. Just say, it's dangerous. There's this guy who's going to take over.
And instead of doing that, what she says is, no, stop, don't do that. And just unplugs the device in the middle of it doing whatever it's doing. And that, for reasons unexplained and that you just have to accept, creates a portal, and everything in the room, including all of them, just gets sucked into the quantum realm, including the ants that Hank was experimenting with, which do come in an awesome scene later in the movie. So now they're in the quantum realm, and this is about 15 minutes into the movie, maybe give
I'd
or
say.
take. And didn't love everything up to this point. I mean, I feel like so far most of the stuff we've been saying have not been super positive, and that's because I didn't love the intro to the movie. But now we're in the quantum realm, and Ant-Man Star Wars has begun. And what did you think about how the quantum realm looked? How, it was a pretty cool sequence of from when they got sucked in to them landing in it. What do you sort of initial thoughts on, like, all right,
Even that,
this
it
is the quantum
reminded
realm?
me of hyperspace in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But as for the quantum realm itself, for the past couple Marvel projects, a lot of people have been going really hard with the CGI and the effects and whatnot. Even with the trailers for this movie, people were comparing it to Spy Kids and Shark Boy and
Marvel's just
Lava
been
Girl.
getting destroyed on Twitter.
And there were a couple shots, specifically when they first landed, that I was like, oof, you can definitely tell that's a blue screen. But for the most part, I think it held up. There were some other shots where I think, like, one thing that bothered me was, like, a lot of the scenes where, like, Scott and Cassie were running, and it looked like they're just running. There's no sweat, no dirt or anything. It's like they're just running in front of a camera. But the actual backgrounds, the character designs, the whole world design, I think it held up really well.
I agree. I thought it looked I thought it looked really good considering my expectations for how it would look were a little low because of I mean at the end of the day, I don't agree with the people like Marvel VFX is garbage. Everything they do looks awful. I don't agree with that. I think most of the stuff they do actually like I thought Eternals looked great. I thought No Way Home looked great. I think a lot of the stuff that they've been making looks good. But at the end of the day, they're right about so many of them being upset with the hours they're working, so many VFX workers, being upset with the way they're treated, stuff like that. And so my expectations were for how the quantum realm would look weren't like super, super high. And I thought it looked pretty good. Like you said, there were a couple shots. I mentioned to you after the movie, that first shot when they land and it's kind of like spanning over it. I was like, all right, that's green screen. But considering how just weird and wacky this movie looked, how many just Star Wars esque characters, like the scene from Star Wars that you compared this to, where this could have looked like it was.
Mos Eisley Cantina, a lot of the different creature variations I could very easily see just in the background throwing one back.
And I think for that to be true in a Marvel movie is pretty impressive because like that is what Star Wars does, and a large part of what it's known for is stuff like that. And Marvel's not. That's not really a realm that Marvel's tried to step into, and now they have. And for you to, someone like you who's about as big of a Star Wars fan as I feel confident saying literally anybody on the planet, for you to say that I think is a testament to Marvel and how good of a job they did making it look the way they did and feel the way it did.
And I also want to say, like, a lot of the different backgrounds and whatnot, it was varied. Like, it wasn't just this is the quantum realm and that's it.
Yeah.
Like where Scott and Cassie were to where Hope, Hank, and Janet were. It was all different locations.
Yeah. It did drastically look different. Like when they landed and Kang's ship kind of went over them, which again would have been a good moment for Janet to say, "Oh, by the way, that ship, it's Kang's. He's evil." I'd worry about him. Instead of saying that, that's another moment she could have said that. But that, the trees and the butterflies or birds or animals they had down there, and then to where Scott and Cassie landed were like drastically different looking. They weren't lazy with that. The movie is called Quantumania, so you kind of have a responsibility to make the quantum realm be awesome, and I think they did that really well.
Yeah, they actually lived up to the title, unlike Multiverse of Madness.
Well, we don't have to talk. That's for another time. But so yeah, I think a lot of the people, even those who were saying like this movie was awful, one of the worst, like even its biggest critics, I haven't heard anybody say the quantum realm looked awful. Like I think most people agree that it was done pretty well. So now let's get into Kang. Kang's introduction to the MCU, the next Thanos, I mean, nothing like Thanos, but the next, that level of Avengers level threat is introduced. How do you feel about the way they chose to introduce him? Sort of like the flashback we got of him and Janet, and Jonathan Majors' first time on screen in the MCU.
Technically not true.
Why, am I blanking?
Loki.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's all right. All right, yeah, you're right.
Major brain
My,
freak. But
my
it's a
fault,
different variation of the character.
It is Jonathan Majors, but it isn't that version
Right.
of him.
But
So
I mean, pretty much everybody who's seen this movie, whether they loved it, whether they liked it, they thought it was mediocre, or they hated it, has praised Jonathan Majors' performance as Kang. I mean, what more can you say? He had the we talk about all the perfect castings in Marvel with Robert Downey Jr., Chris Evans, yada 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 down the list. After just one film and one episode of one series, how can you not put Jonathan Majors on that list?
he is Kang. He is so totally freaking Kang.
He was perfectly menacing. He yelled while whispering. He just had that presence to him. He could. You've been talking a lot about this one moment. You have to do it for the pod, where you knew he was the guy.
So we will get to MODOK, but there is a scene where MODOK is in the room. Kang walks in. Telekinesis powers. MODOK says something, just pushes MODOK against the wall. And I'm not gonna do even close to justice because Jonathan Majors killed it. But he goes, "You will not speak when I walk in the room." And it is so badass.
Chills.
So badass. But yeah, I thought, I like the way they introduced him. I like how they did it sort of like in different like spurts. Like the first we see of him is when he first crash lands in the quantum realm.
And then it's like an hour till we see him again.
Yeah, and Janet's been down there for a while at this point. He saves her, I guess, from these creatures that are attacking her. And when she sees him, I mean, he really does look like he went through some stuff. Like he is not the conqueror when she sees him. He looks beat and defeated, and later we find out why, and that he was what's the word? I don't know. He was sent away by. I'm thinking of the word for sent
Exiled.
away. Exiled. Thank you. Yeah, he was exiled from the Council of Kangs, which post-credit scene we'll get to that too. So yeah, and I thought the thing about the character is Kang is written to be like very unpersonable. Like all of the personality of Kang, because he's written to just be strictly like business, like I am here to conquer the freaking multiverse. Like he isn't written to be sympathetic, he isn't written to be funny, he isn't written to be a very personable guy. Like he's just straight villain, which is awesome. But the thing about that is if you're going to do that, you need to have an actor who can pull that off with the expressions of his face, with the way he speaks, with the space he puts in between words. Because if you don't cast that kind of character right,
you just have a mustache.
You just exactly what I was going to say. You just have a mustache twirling villain. I'm trying to think I don't know why this is the first example that came to my head just now. Super random. But the Harley Quinn Birds of Prey movie, I don't know if you
Ewan McGregor
mustache twirling villain, and that is I hate when movies do that. And Jonathan Majors' character is written like that, but it's fine because Jonathan Majors is so good. The expressions he makes, the way he talks, he's just you feel like not sympathetic, but you can feel the emotion coming off of him, even though he's not written to have emotion. If that makes sense, so I just feel like Jonathan Majors killed it. And like you said, even the people upset with the movie who didn't love it or even really like it, they all agree that Kang is here and he is Kang and he was awesome in it.
So, I know this is jumping ahead a little bit, but I have to mention it since we're on the topic of Kang. He was easily my favorite part of the movie, but he's also the reason I did not especially love this movie and where it's going from here, with how the story utilized him. Obviously, Jonathan Majors was perfect, but the story choices with Kang towards the end of the movie.
I think I know where you're. Yeah, we will get there, and I think I agree.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there. Like, I loved him, and he was perfect, but the writing for him, it did not hit home the way I wanted it to.
I do think I agree, and I think I know where you're getting to that. But okay, next, MODOK, the Okay, I will. This is what I gotta say about MODOK right away. The first mention of him was done exactly how I was hoping it would. They didn't call him MODOK. They called him. They what it was.
Machine organically
No, it was a
designed.
mechanized
A
organism
mechanized.
designed only for killing. But who it was that another blank. Who's the actor again? Everybody was freaking out about him. He was in the movie for a little bit. He was the
Oh,
character.
Bill Murray.
Thank you. Bill Murray, dude,
Kids
I
these
have these
days.
blanks whenever I get in front of this mic, man. The nerves they just come crazy.
And speaking of Bill Murray, he had one scene, but I
He was so
totally
good
bought
in
him in the
it. Dude,
world.
Bill Murray was
And the way he
awesome.
was like joyful and happy.
If you're
happy
seeing
going.
this movie for Bill Murray only, you're gonna be upset because he is literally in 5 minutes. But it's a great 5 minutes.
Like when he got
It is
serious, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I buy that he's serious, and this is Bill Murray we're
Yes.
talking about.
So how they introduce MODOK is Bill Murray says like he talking about Kang sent his
They did
guy.
use that trope a lot. He's coming.
Yeah, they
Him,
did.
he. I'm like,
They
we all
did.
know who you're talking about.
Yeah, they did. I think they overdid that, but what Bill Murray says is he sent a mechanized organism designed only for killing. And I don't know if you caught it right away.
No.
My cousin didn't. So he's sitting there and like I could tell he kind of like cuz I was sitting there like oh, like I know what that, but didn't have any reaction. So I was like, dude, do you know what he just said? He was like, dude, what? I'm like, it's an acronym. He's like, what's an acronym? I'm like, dude, mechanized organism designed only for killing. And then he was like, holy like he was freaking out.
I do like how Scott pointed out that it's actually MODOK because I'm one of those pedantic people
You
who would
suck.
always-
You and Scott both suck. Yeah, but okay, yes. But I'm so glad they did that because even though it's obvious when you hear it, I'm still glad they did it because that's awesome. And then so MODOK as a whole, they made a very interesting decision with him. I'm curious I remember what you said right after the movie, but I'm curious as to if that changed at all.
So this is probably the most controversial thing from the film. Well, besides you, everybody would either love this or hate this decision. Now, you and I, neither of us are really big comic readers. We're pretty much MCU only. We know about the comics, but we haven't read a ton of them. I love this decision they made. Like, if you're going to adapt something like MODOK for general audiences and you're putting him in an Ant-Man movie, why not make that personal connection? You know, something we know. Because we had a brief discussion about this. Who else would you put in that position? Or you're just going to make it some random new character that we haven't seen in Ant-Man films or Marvel films before? Doing this, it made sense for the story, it made sense for the characters, and it was a fun twist on a character we all know.
Yeah, no, so the thing about MODOK is if your complaints about him are either he was too funny of a character, he shouldn't have been comedic, or his face looks stupid, how can you complain about either of those things? Because they are literally pulled straight from the comics. Like you said, I'm not a big comic reader. In fact, I really haven't read any comics, but I know what comes from the comics and what doesn't. And MODOK in the comics, one, he looks stupid when his face, like, that's not a natural thing.
That's like the point.
That's like the point. And he's naturally a comedic character in the comics, which is you kind of have to be when your face looks like that. And so people who were like, we need MODOK in the MCU, he's so cool in the comics, we need to see it in live action. And now you're complaining when he is in live action and it's literally the exact thing pulled from the comics. That doesn't make sense.
And what a lot of these people seem to want is MODOK as like the main guy, like
which he isn't in the comics either.
And it would never work for an actual movie.
No. Now, if you're complaining about who they decided to make MODOK, that's where I'm like, okay, I understand if you don't, because it's a pretty controversial decision they made. And what they did is they made it Darren, classic Darren from Ant-Man 1, the Yellow Jacket. And the decision didn't like excite me at all. Like I wasn't sitting there like,
he's one of the most forgettable characters in all of Marvel.
I was not sitting there like, yes, I'm so happy it's Darren. But at the same time, I was sitting there like, that makes sense. Because if you remember, and they show it in the movie, at the end of their fight, how Scott defeats him is he does shrink him down, like folds him into the quantum realm, like times infinity or whatever it was. So it's not like he just died. You just assume he died. So it makes sense that he would end up in the quantum realm. Kang would find him. Uh, and it makes sense how they decided to make him look like MODOK because his body just,
It
you know,
didn't shrink all the way in the right places.
right. Yeah, exactly. So, and they did have a pretty funny short arms joke in there that I knew would come, and it was done pretty well. But so I am fine with the fact that they made him Darren, because how do you, like you said, how does one become a MODOK? Like, how does that happen? So the way they decided to do it was they thought, is there any character we could possibly think of that we could twist it to make it okay? He became MODOK, and I think it makes sense. It logically makes sense how Darren became MODOK, and it did allow for the "it's never too late to be a dick" line, which is a legendary line from Cassie. Um,
I will say, I just lost my train of thought. Well, one of the big problems that people complain about with Marvel movies, and it was even kind of a problem earlier in this film, is that we're just supposed to accept that things happen. Like, I guess we're rolling with that. They actually took the time to explain in a
and
perfect
people
way
are
that this
still,
happened.
yeah. So if you wanted, if you weren't exactly happy to see Darren again and that's your MODOK reveal, then I'm not gonna say like that's a stupid thought to have. Like, and that's fine. I'm okay with it. I mean, it makes sense, so I didn't mind it. But at the same time, I wasn't like, yes, Darren. Thank God I get more Darren. But if you're gonna complain he was too funny, he shouldn't have been comedic. His face looked dumb. You wanted MODOK. That is what you wanted. So
And
that's
when he was villain, he was pretty terrifying with all the
oh, when
weapons he
he
had in his
yeah, yeah.
arsenal.
Yeah, when he had his mask on, he looked awesome. The suit was exactly, I mean, I don't know exactly, but it was pretty comic accurate. So, so yeah, I feel like we both fall similar on MODOK. Now Scott's heist, which I thought was basically the movie comes to a point where, and I know we're skipping over a lot here, but the in between what we talked about and what we're about to talk about is a lot of exposition stuff. It's Janet telling them about Kang and Scott and Cassie finding their way to Kang. But basically, Kang has Cassie, and he needs the piece for his ship that Janet basically. I can't even begin to explain what she did to it, so I'm just going to say she put it somewhere he couldn't get it, and he needed.
If you've seen, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and Kang needed somebody in a quantum suit to shrink down to go get the piece he needed for his ship to escape. And so he sends Scott on a heist to go get that piece for him, so he'll give him Cassie. And at the same time, Janet is sending Hope down there to get it so they can keep it away from Kang. And Scott doesn't know that Kang needs this piece. Like, Scott doesn't know the things about Kang that we know, that Janet knows, that Hope and Hank know. So Scott's going down there like, I'm going to give him the piece. He'll take his ship, get out of here. I get Cassie. Cool. While Hope is like, Scott, do not give this thing to him. Blah, blah, blah. And I thought this was awesome. I thought this was a really cool point of the movie because at the end of the day, Ant-Man is a former thief. Scott Lang is a former, that's how we got introduced to the character is, Ant-Man 1 was a heist movie. Ant-Man 2 was I don't know what to call it, but find the item, like a bunch of different people looking for the same item, whoever gets there first, blah, blah. So this was while this movie is so different from the first two, those are small scale heist movies. This is like the quantum realm, the intro to phase 5. Kang, they still found a way to make it the core of it a little heist. Who can get to this item first? And I thought that was super cool how they did that.
And it was probably, in my opinion, most definitely the most
Ant-Man
visually appealing sequence of the entire film.
So cool. So yeah, so he goes down there. Hope is on her way down there. Scott makes it to the home base of this thing first, I guess. And then we get the Ant-Men sequence, which is, I think, the coolest sequence of the movie. So in the trailer, you saw it. It was, all the Scotts talk, like 50, 100 different Scotts in the same scene. And the Baskin-Robbins Scott was...
I do find it funny how there was only one. Like, all these
hilarious.
Ant-Men.
It was awesome.
It was funny, but, like, realistic, like,
yeah.
only one.
So basically what happens is where he is, it is a... what do they call it? It's like a Schrodinger's box, and he's the cat. It's a possibility. I forget what they call it, but it's every possible version of Scott starts appearing, and so we get a bunch of different Ant-Men, and they're all like, "No, I'm the real one. I'm the real one. I'm the real one." Blah, blah. We've seen it done before in things, not the most creative thing in the world, but one Scott comes and he's in a Baskin Robbins uniform, and this was one of like the thing about this, the jokes in this movie worked for me. At least like 90-95% of them worked for me, which was a huge deal with obviously it being an Ant-Man movie. It's naturally going to have jokes, so they gotta work, and I think they did. And this one was like the peak for me. I was literally dying laughing in the theater, which I never do, but I literally couldn't hold myself for this part. Yeah, and so they're all together arguing about who's the real one, and but it's not gonna be nearly as funny when I do it. But
Just spit it out.
dude, there's one in the back, and you like right before shit starts to go down, you just hear one Scott in the way back, and he's like, "You guys think he has ice cream?" And it was so funny when it happened in the theater. Am I just an idiot, or was it actually pretty funny?
I actually didn't even catch it on my first view.
Dude, it was so. You gotta watch it again, and only for that scene. Just go watch it again.
I
Specifically,
mean, even
so you can hear
you
that.
completely butchering it like this, I still think it's funny.
So-
So hearing Paul Rudd do it,
Yeah, and just the fact that there was one of him that ended up still being a Baskin Robbins employee, and the guys are like, "Dude, why are you wearing a Baskin Robbins uniform?" And he's like, "Because I work at
there."
Baskin Robbins." He was like, "What are you guys wearing?" So I thought that was really funny. But then we get the sequence where you can describe the Ant-Men become ants.
it was the perfect metaphor for the entire character, the entire trilogy of films. They all band together just because they find out that Scott's just trying to help Cassie, and that's the one thing that they all care about. So they help him go up and reach the top in a big anthill, basically.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And then he's like 3/4 up the way of the anthill, trying to like reach the thing that he needs. And then the Baskin Robbins one is up there at the top, and he helps his foot up to. That was awesome. I don't know why I loved it so much, but I did. And then so they collapse and he starts to fall, but Hope is there, perfect timing. Which that's like something where like you have to accept it, and I'm okay with that. Like the thing at the beginning, like she pulled the plug and it just pulled them all in the quantum realm without any, like that's things like that and No Way Home, what they did with the spell. Like those are like you can explain those more. But Hope showing up like just in time.
Perfect timing.
That I can accept. I don't need explanation for that exactly.
That's a classic
Yeah.
movie,
It's
TV
different.
trope. Like it's not.
Yeah. And so they get the piece, and basically Hope is, you cannot give this to Kane. And Scott's like, I'm going to get Cassie. I don't care about anything else. I'm going to get my daughter. And that's bringing back the theme that we talked about from the beginning of the movie. Do you help the bigger picture, or is it just save your people? Like your family is your only responsibility. So that is another point where they brought that out, and I thought it was done naturally in the story. It made sense why Scott felt that way, I think. But at the same time, obviously Hope is naturally the one who like you cannot give this to Kang.
So there has been. I've listened to and read some various reviews since then, and one thing a lot of people seem to be complaining about is something that was kind of teased in the trailers, and I want to get your thought on it, is that Kang really seemed to be teasing Scott with the idea that he could get the 5 years back that he missed with Cassie. And they thought that would have been a more interesting avenue to explore than rather just, oh, I'm going to kill her if you don't get this thing from, I'm going to torture her. Do you think Scott would have been tempted by this offer? Do you think it would have made it an interesting talking point instead of kind of more just evil villain that we got?
I think they should have explored that more, because I agree that would have been super interesting.
Especially since Kang, his main thing is time.
Right, and that's why he needs the piece to his ship, so that he's like there could have been a conversation, like you're saying, where he could have been, Scott, get me the piece to my ship, and not only will I give you your daughter back, I will take you back in time. I will take you to a universe where you never left, and you can go. And I think that would have been a really good conversation to have. I agree, but I don't think it had to have happened, because like it didn't happen, and I just said what I said. Like I know, like that may have been something Scott did have in mind, but I agree it should have happened. But I don't think it had to have, because I feel like it's implied in some ways. because they do mention it.
Mhm.
But no, now I do think there a conversation about that could have been a more, to look deeper into that plot point.
And I do think when it comes down to it, Scott Lang as a character would not take that offer.
Yeah, no,
He's not a
yeah,
completely selfish person like that. He's only going to do it if her life is in danger.
right. So we get to Cassie's rebellion. Oh, I do. Before we do get to this pretty cool scene where Cassie's like up as a hologram, talking to like the entire quantum realm.
This is another of those things that we've mentioned quite a bit where you just kind of have to accept it, how they kind of just interrupted.
There's a lot of that in this movie, which is a large part of why a reason why people were complaining about it, which I get, but like you gotta take some and give some, like it's Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. It's not a like a love interest movie in the real world. Like it's not, you know what I mean?
It's things that like kind of annoy me, but they don't really take away from my actual enjoyment of the entire film.
Right. So before we get to Cassie's rebellion, I do want to mention there was one scene, and so Kane has Cassie and Scott. This is right before the heist sequence that we just talked about. And he is explaining to Scott, like, I need you to do this for me. I need you to go and get this piece. And he's basically explaining what the mission is. And Scott's like, dude, no. Why would I? I'm not going to, no. And so he takes Cassie and he starts, like, with his telekinesis, like, I don't know what he's doing exactly. Maybe, like,
squeezing her, pulling her apart.
Yeah, whatever. He's doing something. She's in pain. And Scott is like, it's a pretty basic thing. Like, he's like, I'll do it, blah, blah. And then right before it happens, Scott's like, okay, I'll help you. What if he just killed Cassie? Like, because think about that scene. Like, it's intense. And Kane just kills her right then and there. Because if that happens, you're sitting there in the theater, because nobody expects that. You're sitting there like, wait, what? What should? And now you know, oh shit, Kane will kill anybody.
If you're going to kill a kid in a Disney
Kane will kill anybody at any moment. This guy is like, he is less sympathetic than Thanos. He is the evil. And the counter argument to that is, well, now why would Scott help him? He just killed his only. Why does it? I will kill Hope. I will kill Janet. I will kill Hank. I will get my piece, and I will kill everybody you love or everybody you've ever loved. And maybe that is just my effed up brain, like liking seeing things like, but that would have made it so much better.
And his argument to get Scott to help him would be, I can bring her back. I can go back in time.
Oh, dude, I didn't even. Oh my god, I just got chills. I didn't even think about that. It would have been so. We could do some great
show that, but it's all an idea.
I mean, it would have to be a brutal death, but like, she just falls unconscious, and like, I just feel like that would have added so much, because I think this is what you were alluding to earlier, and we'll get to that soon, but nobody really suffers any major consequence in this. Like, nobody dies. And if
nobody even gets stuck in the quantum realm, which I feel like would have been an interesting choice.
And if that happens to Cassie in that moment, Scott, I mean, can you imagine the despair, the sadness that Scott would have doing a mission for Kane, for him, knowing that he just killed his daughter, and that if he doesn't do this for him, he will go and kill the rest of his family, because he knows that he just watched Kane do. Like, he will do it. Like, I just feel like that would have brought this movie to another level, where people would have walked out of the theater like, yeah, Kane did not escape. Kane did not take over the multiverse. Scott didn't get stuck in the quantum realm. Hope didn't die. Janet didn't die. Hank didn't die. But Scott lost. This was a tragedy. Like, I feel like that would have added so much more to it. And I don't know, that's just a thought I had. So.
And Kang 100% would have felt an intimidating threat.
Yeah, and he already does, but so much more. So anyway, we get to, that doesn't happen. Scott goes down to get the piece so that Kane will give up Cassie. And all of this, how do we get to the point where basically Cassie escaped? Okay, yeah. So Kane has Cassie up in the prison area, whatever. She escapes the guards, fights them off because I guess she's an MMA artist all of a sudden, and she frees the leader of like the on the ground quantum realm rebellion. By the way, there's an entire society
I was
in the
about to
quantum.
say,
There
we've
is
gotten to the third act and we're just mentioning
there's an
him now.
entire society in the quantum realm. Basically, a bunch of like Star Wars characters. A guy with holes who rocks. He's awesome. There's a guy who looks like broccoli. There's a guy who shines light out of his head, and there are houses with arms and legs. I feel like that pretty much wraps it up. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
The mind reader.
The mind reader. There's a mind reader who is played by.
Did you look up his name?
No, I didn't. I still don't know his name. I am gonna look it up actually.
We know the actor. We like him in The Good Place, but neither of us could remember his name coming out of the theater.
It is William Jackson Harper. He's a good actor. I was very happy to see him in the movie. Oh no. The LED sign just turned off. We're back. We are back.
Close call.
So yeah, he is in the movie and he's an awesome actor, so I was pretty pleasantly surprised to see him in there in a pretty important role. I mean, nothing critical to the movie, but he had screen time, a decent amount of it. So yeah, there's a society in the quantum realm, and Cassie finds her way to a room where she is able to, I mean, she can make a quantum signal locator, so she can do anything, I guess. And she makes a hologram of herself appear just in the Kang Citadel, I guess, to where the entire quantum realm, the rebellion, the people who have been oppressed by Kang, which again brings up the theme of Cassie trying to help the helpless. And Scott during this is just trying to do something to help Cassie to get her free, which he should as a dad, which is fair, which is understandable, while Cassie is trying to gather the troops, help the helpless, and she basically tells them, it isn't too late. I know it feels like it is, but come to the center of the quantum realm, whatever, come to Kang's kingdom and fight back because there's still time and you still can. And yeah.
One thing I've thought about since we saw the movie is obviously it makes sense that Cassie would rally these troops. That was her main plot line through the movie, but also she was trying to convince her dad to help these helpless people, as you mentioned. And he didn't really even interact with them at all. He kind of just ignored them and went straight. Obviously, he helped them, but indirectly.
Yeah.
And there was another plot line going on that Janet abandoned these people when, she kind of left Kang with them and then went back to the real world. She also didn't really have any direct impact on any of this. I feel like either one of them having a direct impact would have improved multiple storylines that happened throughout the film.
Yeah, no, I agree. There were, again, like I said, there were a lot of interesting plot points in the movie that because it's Kang and because he's the main focus and because at the end of the day it's a 2-hour movie, you just don't have time. You could have spent an extra 5 minutes on each plot point, and the movie could have been 2 hours and 25 minutes instead, and I feel like it would have been a lot better for that, like you're saying. But yeah, those are good points, a little underdeveloped.
And besides Wakanda Forever, there has been a trend recently of a lot of these Marvel movies being shorter, which I feel like that harmed Love and Thunder. I feel like it harmed Multiverse of Madness.
How dare you say that name? How dare you say that?
Next point. Moving on.
Okay. Love and Thunder on my podcast. You dare mention that name. Anyway.
Peyton Manning.
Actually, that's actually a great time, a great, real quick to not mention, but it is kind of hot in here, right? Have you noticed that it's hot in here?
I was wondering why you were in that.
No. What are you talking about? It's just hot in here. And yeah, I forgot to turn.
Take your time.
Got to turn the fan on, and just naturally a hot day. Living in Florida can get hot sometimes. So just taking off the flannel, because it's
the greatest quarterback in New England Patriots history.
Greatest of all time. So yeah,
I mean, I've got a Rajon Rondo 2011 All-Star jersey. I think my attire is better, but I'm fit for the occasion. All-Star Saturday night, but you want to just
speaking of All-Star Saturday
night, wear a Donald
night,
Trump fan on your shirt, but whatever.
Greatest quarterback ever on the field. Speaking of All-Star weekends,
Son says too.
It's not the time, not the place. We will get to. We will have this conversation. It was hot in here. Okay. we will get to All-Star Weekend. Like I said, dunk contest, 3-point contest starts. Oh, it's 8:30. We are gonna.
And probably the skills challenges.
Yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, maybe the timing will work out perfectly. But we are gonna give some dunk and 3-point contest predictions. We're gonna cut because I am a Adobe Premiere Pro now, and we will be back just to maybe one of us will get something right, which I will because I've been burning midnight oil on this. And
Didn't get the NFL season right, that's for sure.
so we all right. So final battle. Scott, Hope, Cassie, Janet, Hank. They're all there. Kang is there. Kang is trying to. He got the piece for his ship. It's loading up. He's about to escape the quantum realm, and everything just comes to this big third act final battle.
Classic MCU
Final battle, which people are upset. The Ant-Man movie, why does it have to be like this kind of final battle again? And in some movies, I understand that, but like this is the intro to Phase 5, and it's Kang, so I feel like part of it is justified because of that. And so, how do you feel about the way the final battle, third act, was? It then played out.
I did find myself being like, oh, here we go again. Like, I know what trope is coming next. They're all surrounded. Then something's going to come out of the sky and save the day. It did. But I feel like it was...
Not the sky. The ground. Ants.
It's a metaphor. It's a saying. Anyways, I feel like it was executed uniquely enough for an Ant-Man film. And the final battle wasn't quite the final battle. There was still more afterwards. And that's what I feel like was the best part of it. And
what was shown in the trailer. Which, why? But go ahead.
Sometimes I wish I didn't watch trailers.
Every time I see a movie, I say, I am not watching the next trailer. And then there I am. Ear to ear smile.
You can show so much, but the final battle within the final 10 minutes of the film, we're all going to see it regardless. You don't have to show us that.
Right. So,
but I like that the original Ant-Man finally had a great Ant-Man moment with the ants coming in.
So good.
We mentioned it was set up here and there throughout the film when Hank would be...
I was noted, throughout the film, it was every once in a while, Hank would just tap his ear. He had a communication device where he would, like, talk to the ants that they teased back in the real world, and the ants got sucked in with them, and so throughout the movie, he was just kind of, like, adjusting it, hearing, like, static sounds, and I thought that was pretty cool how they brought that around. And like you said, it is a trope. They're about to lose. How can they win? All of a sudden, on the ground, they're saved. So yeah, you're gonna get that, and if that annoys you, it's gonna annoy you here too. This isn't not that, but I think the way they did it was pretty cool. I like that. So yeah, Kang has them cornered. Kang is, he comes down.
I was going to say, we get a villain who's actually on the ground doing some of the dirty work himself, which was nice to see.
He is lasering the shit out of people, just murdering just dozens of people, if you want to call them that. And it's the scene you see in the trailer where he comes down, just both hands just start shooting lasers. In the movie, what he's doing is genocide. Which I am glad that
It's like Homelander.
It is, yeah. It's kind of like Homelander. So that's what's going on there. Kang looks like he's gonna win, and then you just hear some rumbling in the background, and Hank's ants, all of them. I mean, I don't even want to be. It didn't stop. The ants didn't stop coming, and were there that many ants in that ant farm? Probably not.
But there's always more ants than you think there are.
I guess so. Ant-Man.
And I mean, they were there for thousands of years, so
that's a good point. Yeah,
they probably repopulated.
Anyway,
quite a bit.
So point is, Hank. What do you remember the line Hank says? I don't, but I think it was pretty cool.
The one when he's like, "I like ants."
That was a pretty great line. Great line. But oh yeah, there is one scene. This isn't quick, like 2-second sidebar where what does Kang say? All right, that's a minute. Where Kang is like, oh my god, what is it? He's like, you play with ants, or he was like, he basically just diminishing Scott, like I am the multiversal traveler, like I discovered the multiverse, and you play with ants. And I was like,
It's like I've killed plenty of Avengers. Are you the one with the hammer?
yeah, that was good too, because that, I mean, yeah, I mean that puts it in perspective. Like, yeah, like Scott is out of it. Like, this dude was robbing convenience stores not too long ago, and now he's in the quantum realm fighting Kang the Conqueror. So I thought that was a cool line of dialogue. But the ants come in, rampage Kang, save the day. We get big Scott and big Cassie just punching buildings, and
I will say I wanted to bring this up. The harm with putting this film in the quantum realm the entire way is you don't really get much sense of scale with the growing big and growing small because it's a brand new world. Like you can't say, "Oh, there's Ant-Man in a bathtub," because you know what a bathtub looks like or whatever. Like when they were hugging and they were both big, I couldn't tell that they were big.
yeah, no,
Like
100%. I could not. I remember thinking to myself, like, are they big? And then when Cassie was like, I'm so hungry, and he was like, it happens. I was like, okay, they're big. But yeah, the fact that I didn't know that right away, that is a good point. It is tough too. Which, yeah, it is a. No, I agree. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. But basically, the ants come in, they save the day. Scott and Hope and Janet and Cassie and Hank, they're all getting out of there, going through the portal, going home. And Kang comes at the last second, uh, stops Scott from going through the portal, and then the final battle between Kang and Scott and a little bit of Hope begins. And it was pretty much what you saw in the trailer. Kang just
it was brutal.
beating Scott's ass, which I was like, thank God, because if they like Scott's not going to be Kang in hand to hand combat, and if they made that happen, I would have been
It was already too easy, and if he beat him again there,
right. So Kang was beating Scott. Hope comes in, buys Scott enough time to, get back up. Then Hope goes through the portal. Scott's about to. Kang stops Scott again. They, more hand. Scott says the line you saw in the trailer, which is an awesome line, which they shouldn't have shown in the trailer. But he says, I don't have to win. We just both have to lose. And that's when I thought, well, what did you think was going to happen there? I think we all thought.
Kind of was really hoping he would get stuck there.
Right. We all.
I shut it down. I'm going to keep him here no matter what.
Which would have been an interesting.
And even after they sent Kang away and after Hope came to save him and they got stuck there, I was like, okay, that's an interesting choice as well.
Yeah, I agree. So
and 5 seconds later.
Right. So what happens is Kang gets sucked into the quantum realm, which again, if you think about it, like if the quantum realm has a whole society,
they could just conquer another society.
And they have another quantum realm in it. Is there a quantum realm, and a quantum so Kang gets sucked into that, and Scott goes home, and then we get the voiceover.
Before we get there, I wanted to mention this. I feel like Hope was really underutilized in this movie. She was just there to question her mom, which never went anywhere, and to save Scott a couple of times. She didn't actually have anything to do herself. Like, I'm going to make this choice. This is me doing this. And it's called Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is not Ant-Man 3. This is Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania.
You're right. There were a lot of...
Janet had more to do than her.
There were a lot of characters in the movie that were, like, said it a couple times, say it again. This is Kang. This is introducing Kang. And then you have that Cassie subplot, which is explored more than any other subplots. Like, they didn't really... I don't know if Ant-Man was the best character to use in a movie introducing Kang because of all those subplots that they just didn't have time to go into. But at the same time, you got to find a way to introduce Kang. And I feel like Ant-Man and the quantum realm, Ant-Man being the only one who can get into the quantum realm, you got to make up an excuse for where Kang has been all these years. Why is he just now coming? And having him being stuck in the quantum realm, the reason for that makes sense. But what that means is you have to make it an Ant-Man movie because he's the one who get in the quantum realm. And in doing that, like some of those subplots just aren't explored enough. And that's a pickle that they put themselves in. But I feel like overall, we're doing a lot of like criticism of this movie when we both didn't dislike it. So, I mean, but it's not as we're not just gonna say like it was good. Like we gotta critique it.
Talk about what we like and what we didn't like. And you mentioned all those characters; they had to find their way to work around. This is while even eliminating a ton of characters, like Michael Pena's character. I really missed him. We always theorize about him recapping whatever event in the MCU, and we didn't even get any of that. I mean, it wasn't necessary, obviously, but it's a nice little comedic element in Ant-Man films.
And I didn't even. Dude, you're right. We didn't get any of them.
No, we didn't get any of them. We didn't get like Cassie's mom and her boyfriend. We didn't like.
Yeah, no, I mean that just goes back to when you're introducing Kang, you gotta
get right into it.
You gotta get right into it, and they did get right into the quantum realm. But so we get the voiceover. Scott, this worked for me. It sounds like it didn't work for you. Scott is basically walking down the street like the beginning of the movie, and he says we stopped a multiversal traveler. Or did we? He did say that there were more of him coming, and we did say that if we didn't help him, worse things were coming, and he didn't die, I don't think, or maybe he did. Nah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And that worked for me because you have to find a way to mention, like, he didn't die. We didn't see his body dead. And the only way to do that I've really seen is to, like, have a panning over his body, and he, like, wakes up in this new place, and then you cut out, and like that's just used all the time. So I didn't mind the voiceover being the way they did that, because they didn't show him after that. Like that variant of Kang, that's all we saw of him, which I didn't mind because now
you could have shown like the device twitching a bit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they could have done that, but I didn't hate how do you feel about the last like 4 minutes?
Yeah, I didn't hate it either. It was a little like, I don't know how to describe it. For the ending of the movie, it was a little too like happy-go-lucky with that sense of dread kind of like ham-fisted in there again. I didn't hate it. It wasn't like offensive to me or anything, but I felt like
you felt it was like
the movie
kind of an anticlimactic way to end it.
Yeah.
So I can see that. But we get 2 post-credit scenes after, which are both pretty huge. The first one is, again, this is straight from the comics. Pulled straight from the comics is the Council of Kangs. There's some weird looking ones. There's some cool looking ones. It's just basically Kang. We mentioned it in the beginning of the movie. He mentions he was exiled, and Janet says by who, and she tells she tells Hope that Kang never told her, and this is where we see the Council of Kangs or who exiled Kang, which I thought was perfect because who can you justify being strong enough to exile the strongest villain the MCU's ever had? Him, a bunch of him. So I thought that made sense. What were your thoughts on the first post-credit scene?
We all kind of knew, like it was Kang's. Like even from He Who Remains in Loki,
right? Yeah.
Like we knew it was Kang's. Something about this scene gave me. I heard other people say this too, but I was thinking it when I saw it, like SNL vibes. Like the costumes were I know it's comic accurate, obviously.
Yeah.
But adapting some of these things, like
you didn't have to adapt them all.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And then like I laughed like when you saw the ones cheering and fist bumping each other in the crowd and whatnot. But going back to something I alluded to earlier, it kind of takes away from what I felt from Kang and the fact that he died, whatever. We don't know if he's coming back or whatnot. I really was attached to that Kang. I think they could and might very well bring him back, even with the Council of Kangs. But you need one to attach to if you're going to build up to this entire arc of Kangs. You can use all these other ones however you want, but this one was so menacing. And also going back, the fact that the ants kind of overran him. Did it like it served the story of Ant-Man well, but for Kang, I know he was not at his full strength. He didn't have all his suit.
And she mentioned that he got enough strength to get his suit back, but he wasn't
nothing
fully.
Else. Yes,
right, which may be why we only saw the lasers and the telekinesis.
I can buy that, but just a casual moviegoer, he was beaten by Ant-Man and his family and some ants, and now he's going to be expected against all the Avengers.
I think they teased how powerful he can be because we didn't really see or hear why he was exiled. And there has to be a reason for a bunch of Kangs to exile this Kang. And they were talking about him like he's dead. We got word he's dead. He died. And there was like a sense of relief, like, are you sure? So there it's teased, like there's something about this Kang where he's not like the rest. And I'm excited to see and hear more about that in the future, which means that I hope we get that Kang again. Because if he's just dead and we just move on to another Kang, then we're gonna run into a lot of problems. Because why is any Kang special than the other infinite amount of them if we don't bring back this specific one? So I totally agree with what you're saying there. And then the second post-credit scene, which is where if you haven't seen Loki before watching this movie, you don't have to have. You can still, your enjoyment of the movie is still 99 100ths of what it would be if you haven't seen Loki, except this post-credit scene. We get Loki and Mobius, what appears to be back in time.
Mobin time.
What appears to be back in time on my podcast. You dare mention that name. We get back in time, and Loki and Mobius are in a crowd at what feels like an old theater, and it is what appears to be that Kang, the first Kang, exploring his device to explore the multiverse and kind of showing it to a crowd. And I loved this post-credit scene way more than the first one with the Council Kangs, because this is the post-credit scene where I was like, okay, one, Loki season 2 is confirmed for this year, and this just excites me for that more. It was awesome seeing Tom Hiddleston on screen again. And two, it gave me more confidence that we are going to get more of that specific Kang. Did you sort of have the same?
Yeah, I also loved it. I mean, I loved Loki, so I was going to love this scene regardless.
Best Marvel Disney Plus show.
I think it was the perfect setup for Loki season 2. Even if you haven't even seen Loki season 1, I feel like it gave enough, like, oh, that's pretty intriguing.
Yeah, and at the end, I don't know if I've been seeing this clip surface on social media a lot the past 2 days, and it's Loki in the very end of season 1, one of the last scenes. Loki says, he runs to Mobius and some girl that works there, and he says,
wow, B-15.
And is that actually her?
I think
psychopath.
So.
How do you know? Okay. And he says, there were a ton of him, he's coming, and then it pans to the statue of him. So, I don't know, I just like the way that connected, and that kind of just, I don't know, it made me more, looking forward to more Kang and hopeful that we'll get to see more of that variant of him.
Now, one thing I've seen on social media the past 2 days, people are theorizing that the Kang that we saw in this Ant-Man film is actually the same as the one we saw in Loki, He Who Remains. Just at different points in time. Because, he said he was just going to keep repeating that same lifespan. He said this in Loki, and because he had conquered all the Kangs, he was exiled, and he showed up there and watched over the timeline.
You present an interesting point. That I will listen. I think the fan theories are going to be coming out of everywhere over the next, until Loki season 2. And so with that said, overall, give me a concrete rating. You are going on record. This is Mike Kennedy's rating, 1 out of 10, of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. And then, is this what you expected? Did it exceed your expectations? Did it meet them? Did it disappoint? Let's hear it.
My first official rating of a Marvel movie. I'm a little nervous.
Really? You haven't done one on your pod yet?
I mean, I don't really ever give like concrete rank
this here on Word of the Weiss. That is a staple. We give concrete ratings. We go on record.
To think of art as like this nebulous thing. Like there's no concrete. 7.5. I'm going solid 7.5. That's what I said coming out of the movie. That's where I think I still sit today. In some ways, it exceeded my expectations. In some ways, I was disappointed. We just probably spent the past hour talking about when he said he wanted to keep this 20, 30 minutes. But
we're not going to talk about that.
I think a solid 7.5. It's probably... How many MCU movies are there now?
I don't know. Wow. Off the top of my head, okay, MCU movies or just MCU
See,
projects.
now it gets too complicated.
Okay,
So
go ahead.
that's
But
probably
say
a
what you
top,
were-
top 10, 15 film for me.
Okay, well, I said out of the theater, I tweeted out in my spoiler-free quick Twitter
Gives these
review.
long threads.
It's not that long. It's like 8. And I said it was a 7.5. And now on record, I'm concrete going 7 flat. Went down a little bit since then. There was, and I would say it's unfortunate to say it disappointed me because I think a 7 out of 10 in comparison to the MCU because of how great the MCU is. Like, really, you look at it and there's like, rough estimate, like 6 bad projects, I'd say, out of 40 plus. So the MCU is fantastic. And so for me to say it's a 7, it's a 7 compared to the rest of the MCU. So I still liked it. I thought it was a good movie, but going in, I thought it was going to be great. I expected it to be great because it is the start of Phase 5. It is the first movie out of the transition phase, which was 4. And I really expected it and thought it was going to be great. And I thought it was fine. It didn't make me upset, but it didn't blow my mind. And I feel like a 7 flat is about where my mind is telling me I'm at.
Now the question is, how would you rank the 3 Ant-Man films?
Ant-Man, Quantumania, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I'm lower on Ant-Man and the Wasp than most people. I didn't think it was a bad movie, but like the thing with the first Ant-Man I loved. I think have it higher than most people. I have it borderline right outside the top 10. I think it's 11 or 12 for me. Ant-Man and the Wasp I have lower than most people. I think it's in my D tier of movies. And it's just because it didn't, like, there was nothing about it that made me upset, but there was nothing about it that excited me. I don't even remember who the villain is, and that was it Ghost?
There's like multiple.
Yeah. So I didn't, but this movie, it wasn't a perfect, like, beginning to end. I just really enjoyed it, like I did with Ant-Man, but it had Kang, and Kang was awesome, and MODOK was cool to see on screen. And so for that reason, I'd have it above Wasp. So that's how I'd go Ant-Man, Quantumania, and then Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And I know you need to do an official ranking one day, but is Kang already second best villain in Marvel, in your opinion?
No.
Or
No.
top 5, top 10? Where's he
At
land?
best, he's 3 right now.
Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth connected.
Gonna pretend that
Anyways.
didn't happen. Gonna move on. You heard that too, right? Okay. And like Thanos and Kingpin are 1A and 1B for me. So at best, King would be 3, but up there,
Killmonger. Or do you have? I know you have some
he's not.
controversial opinions on the original Black Panther film.
We will get to that one day on a future episode. But Kang is up there. I mean, I'd say he's probably top 5. I have to go back and look. I think he's probably right above Vulture for me, but below. He's maybe on par with Wanda because I thought we won't. That's another thing for another episode.
What about
we have
Gore?
a lot to talk.
What about from the Dark World?
Moving on.
The Dark Elves.
So that's where I fall in the movie. It sounds like we're close. You liked it a little bit more than me, I think it's fair to say, but I think we're both in the sort of middle area about it, where we're not on the extreme of like that was awful, but we're also not that is a top 5 MCU movie. So that is our Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania official review and ratings. 7.5, 7.
First movie review, Word of the Wise.
First movie review, Word of the Wise, and more to come for sure. Movies, TV shows, all that stuff.
And/or next.
And now it is 8:58. Really hope we didn't miss the 3-point.
Either way, we haven't been spoiled.
That is true. The 3-point contest is probably going on right now. It is NBA All-Star Saturday night, meaning skills challenge, 3-point contest, dunk contest. Quickly, we're going to give you our predictions for the 3-point and the dunk contest. We're going to come back. I am going to talk my stuff because I know who's going to win them. And then we're going to close out the episode there. So quickly, give me your 3-point winner and then give me your dunk winner.
3-point winner, Damian Lillard. I think it's finally his year.
Wow. No love for our guy, JT. Wow.
Just because I say someone is going to beat him doesn't mean I don't have any love for him. He would be my second choice. I think a lot of times people would choose like one of the bench players in these contests because they're more
fun. Yeah.
3-point experts and
Right.
their stars and sometimes just
But
don't show
Dame-
up. But
Dame
Dame's
is
Dame's
Dame.
been shooting for this for so long. I think it's his 4th contest. He wants to be
It's a
known
good
as
point.
one of the elite shooters in NBA history. I think he's gonna get one at some point, and why not now?
Not a bad point. Dunk.
Let's go yours
Three.
first.
Okay. Now, is part of this because he went to my middle school? Maybe.
100%.
Maybe a little bit. But regardless, you gotta admit this guy shoots the freaking lights out. He's been a little bit injured.
Everyone in this contest does.
He's been a little bit injured, but he's had a great year for Portland. It's my guy, Anthony Simons. I got him winning the 3-point contest, bringing it home to the 407. Rock Lake proud. And listen, I think, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to put it right here on the pod so it's official. And I can't go back
Let's
on this
hear it.
because I've gone back on these before.
You could edit these.
If we go downstairs, and I'm not editing this is staying in. When we go downstairs, if we find out Anthony Simons won the competition, or he wins it, I am buying an Anthony Simons jersey tonight. Official tonight.
When's that Grant Williams jersey coming in, by the way?
I am buying an official Anthony Simons jersey tonight. Now, dunk. Who's your dunk contest winner?
I am going Kenyon Martin Jr.
From the Rockets.
100%. No reasoning behind this. I just decided to choose him. Everybody seems to be going Mac McClung because he's just the fun choice. Everybody wants to see what he has in his bag, but I'll go Martin.
I will say, there are not many things I enjoy more than hating and making fun of the New York Knicks, because my roommate is a Knicks fan. I love it a lot. But Jericho Sims, that dude can jump out of the gym. And because DK Metcalf is not participating in this, I am going to go with Jericho Sims to win it. Not really much analyzation other than the fact that I've seen him do some crazy stuff in game and bring his head to the rim easily multiple times. So I'm going with the Knicks Nation to win the only thing they will this year, and that is the dunk contest.
I don't care if I get this right or wrong. I just hope we finally have an entertaining dunk contest for once since Zach LaVine and Aaron Gordon killed it, 7 years ago now?
I agree with that, but I also care if I'm right because my first podcast with Kennedy.
I mean, does it matter if you're
God.
right if you say you have no reasoning behind it?
Yes.
You're just making a guess.
Nope, not a guess. Analyzation. I've
All
been
right.
burning the midnight oil on this.
Same here.
All right, we will be back. Quick recap of the Duncan 3-point contest, assuming we can still watch some of it. So we got to get out of here to do that. We'll be back. Cool cut animation to when we're back. And we are back. We just watched the NBA dunk contest and 3-point contest. And
Let me cut you off there. Don't you have something to say to the audience about your 3-point contest prediction?
I don't think I do. No.
To remind the audience, it's been about 2 hours for us, but probably like 2 minutes for you. But this man over here picked Anthony Simons just because he went to the same middle school as him.
And coaching
And
analysis.
remind me, how many points did Simons score in the 3-point contest?
He didn't lose, so
How many points?
the same amount
Was
as
it-
same amount as I did.
Greater than or less than 0.5?
It was under 0.5. But
And who won again? Remind me.
you did get it right. You can go ahead. You've earned it. You did get it right. In hindsight, Damian Lillard was probably it was the easy pick.
If it was an easy pick, why didn't you pick him?
Listen, it was his third, and he is already one of the greatest 3-point shooters the league's ever seen. It was bound to be that eventually,
So why did you pick him?
because
Why did you pick somebody? You, the NBA expert,
right,
chose somebody who got replaced in the contest 2 days ago,
it's true.
and you didn't even know this fact.
It did happen. In my defense, I've always been a guy to root for the underdog. So knowing
You can't be an underdog if you're not even in the contest.
or does that make you the ultimate underdog?
No, it means you actually rooted for Julius Randle.
That's
without knowing
no.
it.
That's not what that means.
And he had what?
I already
13
I already
points?
picked one Nick tonight. I am not putting my name behind
That
two.
worked well.
Well, he made it as far as your guy did. So
Okay, but I just pulled my guy out of a hat. You, on the other hand,
Okay.
New York Knicks super fan.
No, that's not what we're gonna do.
And I acknowledged the Mac McClung hype. I just didn't choose him because of the hype. I wanted to go against the grain with that one since, I chose the easy pick for the 3-point shootout.
Listen, the midnight oil may have been a little overcooked. I may have burnt it a bit too much.
And I will say Jericho Sims had the worst dunks of all 4 participants. So my guy at least had. They were both losers, but my guy had better dunks.
Listen, you either win or you lose. And both of our guys lost,
Technically.
and Anthony Simons didn't do either. So I guess you
just
don't
said
win.
you either win or you
well,
lose.
in most cases, but not in that case.
Make up your mind.
So, 3-point contest. Not too much to talk. I think the 3-point contest in the NBA is in a pretty solid place now. It never sucks, and it's never
straightforward competition.
Yeah.
It's an objective winner. It's not subjective like the dunk contest is.
which sometimes causes issues. But tonight I don't think it did because there was no competition. And
the dude missed 1 point across 4 dunks. And one could argue that he deserved that point.
okay, rank these 3. Aaron Gordon 2016?
2016.
Zach LaVine 2016, Mac McClung 2023. I know it's only been about 4 minutes since he won
I
it.
can't do this on the spot.
Well, you are indeed on the spot.
I have long been of the belief that Aaron Gordon was robbed. So I have to put him above Levine.
I'd agree.
And I think I'm going to put him at number 1. And I think right now I'll put McClung 2. I might put Levine 2015 ahead of him. When Levine actually won the contest.
Okay.
Or when he won it for the first time. When he deserved to win, I should say.
I mean, but Mac McClung.
It's on the spot. Don't put this in writing. Don't put it in pen.
Lock it in. Kennedy.
Lock it in, Anthony Simons.
So
I'm gonna hold that over your head, just so you know.
we're not gonna. It's a bad take. We don't like hearing that here. This is about positivity. This is a positivity podcast.
That booing was for your Simons take.
Well, we're gonna have to ask the crowd because
I think they'll agree with me.
So
People like laughing at you.
Right, that they do. That's a good take. They do. So first Mac McClung dunk was oh my god. I walked out of the room after I watched it because I was stunned, and then I watched the replay and I didn't even notice that he touched the backboard with it, which was
each dunk got better with the replay.
Yeah.
They were already insane as is on the broadcast.
And then the first one was actually when he had the dude stand over the other dude,
And that was the
that was one where he also touched the backboard. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that before. I've seen people touch the backboard and dunk it.
He combined various aspects of various dunks.
Second one was what was the second?
one that you forgot and I had to show you.
Okay, yeah, I thought that was the weakest of his 4, which is
And it was still probably the 4th best dunk of the night by anybody.
yeah, probably. Third one, you're
The 5 pumps.
oh my god, that one was yeah. Oh my, I've never seen that done before. I mean, he went about it as if it's a regular reverse pump. He faked it, and then how do you even stay in the air that long?
And I mean, obviously he gets a little bit of leniency because he's short and because he's white.
Right.
But regardless, that was a 50 dunk.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. I mean, then this last dunk was
720.
720. Ball goes through the rim. He continues to spin, lands it perfectly, doesn't stumble, fall, stands up, does the Vince Carter. It's over. There was no question. Now, part of me is upset that there was no question of the dunk contest. There was never a question of who was going to win it. You love a good back and forth, but at the same time, that was one of the best singular performances in dunk contest
The best
history.
thing in a dunk contest is a good back and forth. The second best thing is a dude having an all-out performance.
So that was pretty great too.
So did he save the dunk contest?
I don't know. All I know though is that people who were complaining about no stars playing it, which I agree it would be great if some stars did, but these
Looking at
you don't
you,
have
LeBron.
to. I mean, averaging 25 isn't a requirement to be able to do some crazy dunks.
This dude
And
wasn't even in the league.
apparently playing in the league isn't even a requirement either. But I mean, the right guy won it. He was, like you said, he was the popular pick, and he did his thing. He proved most people right. So
Lesson to be learned: just choose the easy picks. You'll get them right.
I did learn that lesson tonight.
And you also learned you need to choose players who are actually.
And that is going to be it for episode 3 of
Quick question. We're recording this Saturday night, obviously. Who do you have for the All-Star Game MVP on the spot pick?
Oh. Okay, I have a wild pick, and then I have a less wild, pretty believable, like, regular pick.
Let's hear them both.
Okay, you're giving me both. All right, my regular one is Giannis. I mean, it's, when you're that tall and that long and that fast and that, I feel like it's going to be easy for him to rack up points. He's the captain. He's going to play a lot of minutes. If the game ends close, he'll be on the floor guaranteed because he's a captain, so he'll have the opportunity for some late game heroics. So he's my easy pick. Domantas Sabonis is my obscure pick.
All right.
I was one of the people saying he should be a starter. I still think he should have been a starter.
Same here.
I think he's had an unbelievable season. When he was traded for Halliburton, I was one of the only people that said I thought it was a win-win at the time. Everybody thought it was what are the Kings doing? I could see why, because I could see how good Sabonis was and could be. And I think he deserves to be here. I think he should have been a starter. I think he might have that chip on his shoulder. And I think he'd be a pretty storybook guy to win it all if he just can, get the stats to back it up. So
you're probably the only person to predict that.
It's from the heart. That one's from the heart. Giannis is from the head. Now,
guy.
You can do what I did and give me a.
I just have one selection.
Let's hear it.
I'm going Donovan Mitchell.
I like that pick.
It's in Utah.
It's not a bad.
There's always one guy who just goes off. Donovan Mitchell is the exact type of player who could just get hot and shoot the ball every single time he touches it. He's having a breakout season with Cleveland. I mean, he's already been an all-star, but this year he's upped his game even more. He could want to prove it to his hometown fans.
That's a great pick. No, I mean, you know how I feel. If you know me, you know how I feel about Donovan Mitchell. I've been one of the only people over the past few years to say he's better than Devin Booker and never hop off that wave. So, I have been liking Donovan Mitchell for a while. So I like that pick a lot. And maybe you'll go 2 for 3 in this, or maybe I'll get my first right pick, and other than the Super Bowl, of course. And
talk about easy picks.
So we could exact score at 5:15 left in the game. I feel like that's pretty impressive. But anyway, episode 3, Word of the Weiss, guest host Mike Kennedy. I've always wanted to do this, so I'm very excited to. Where can we find you, Mike? Where can they find your work?
Oh, you just made it so cringe. You can follow me on Twitter at Mike Kennedy NFL. You can watch my YouTube videos, Mike Kennedy NFL. I have a podcast with my friend Joe Shea. It's the JM Touchdown Show. You can find us on all streaming platforms. And yeah, if you like NFL content, NBA content, Star Wars, whatever, you name it, I got it. A lot of Peyton Manning content. Spread the agenda.
You probably had him, and then you lost him at the last second there.
I only want people who want the whole me.
Fair enough, I guess. Well, episode 3, Word of the Weiss. Mike, thank you for coming on. This went very smoothly, I'd say. So until next time, guys, thank you for watching again, and means a lot. See you guys later.